everybody. Welcome back to this interview in Staffing Monthly, where we are taking a deep dive into technology and that ever elusive tech stack world that I feel like this industry just sometimes gets overwhelmed with trying to figure out what is the best tech stack, the best technology to really solve the challenge of getting good people into jobs for our clients. And I'm actually going to be interviewing somebody who I recently met. I actually think he's a pretty incredible guy, but he actually built something that could be seen as a little polarizing in our industry. And I actually had the opportunity to meet Jason Oswald, who is the president and co-founder of SimpleVMS, which is, again, a VMS. And I had a chance to meet him at the Aviante Connect conference where we learned about the acquisition, the big news that made waves in this industry. And my first thought was, why would somebody bring a VMS into our industry? Like, why would you bring them into the clubhouse, right? Because we've always had that negative connotation about this, about VMS. But once I sat down with Jason and once I learned more about the history and the way that SimpleVMS was built, I learned it's different. And I actually learned that I think this is a game changer. I actually think it's really powerful what they're doing, and I think it fits nicely. But I invited Jason to come talk to us. Now, really quick, so you know his background, he didn't just build SimpleVMS. He's been in this industry for a couple of decades. He started out in technology, moved into technical staffing, professional staffing, and then decided he saw an opportunity or a problem that needed solving. So he set out to build SimpleVMS. And that's really where we're going to explore this today. So this guy has a wealth of knowledge, understands technology, understands the vision of this industry, and he's helping shape it. So Jason, thank you for being part of Staffing Monthly and being willing to share your insights today.
Yeah, no, thanks, Dan. I'm excited to do this. It's been a wild ride, and I think what we're doing with Aviante will really change the industry. And so take me on the journey with you.
I believe that. I really do. And we're going to get to that. But before we even get to that part right there, I want to know, just really quickly, level set, when you were in staffing, what did you do? Like, what was your role? Were recruiting, sales, business
Yeah.
development? Like, what did you do in staffing, just so the audience gets a flavor
So
for you?
my background was I was a network engineer. I worked for Xerox. I built some huge networks, and I was at the time entrepreneurial. So I went out on my own and found some clients kind of moonlighting on Xerox a little bit there. One of the guys I found owned a staffing company. It was a tiny company, accountants to you. We did accounting and clerical staffing. When I met him, he realized, I guess, my sales personality and said, "Look, man, you don't need to be in technology. You should take a look at this staffing thing." So I came over and I started as a recruiter to have my own little business with him doing IT staffing. So I knew IT, I could recruit the people, and I quickly realized that I could do as much as I wanted in that recruiting role. The more effort I put in, the faster I could grow the business. And within a year and a half, I was generating more revenue on that side of the business than he was with his entire accounting team.
Wow.
So I they scaled me up. I became the president of that company, and we drove that thing for a decade. But during that time, Chimes and other, MSP, VMS solutions were starting to form, and I realized right away that they put up the walls between the agencies and the customer, right? So, you go into a VMS or an MSP, and a lot of that still stands today.
It does.
So, when I built this, what I wanted to do was set up transparency so that everybody can see what's going on. And I just wanted to streamline the interactions because as these programs scale, you end up with dozens of vendors and hundreds of temps and all kinds of credentials. And I just wanted to shift that paradigm. So that was kind of the genesis of it.
It's interesting. So it wasn't really a you can't beat them, you might as well join them thought. It's like, hey, there might be a better way to do this, and you decided to build it. So when you launched it, like, what was that early journey like? What was your thinking? Like, what was your, because obviously when you're building software, you sort of have to have a framework. You got to have like your
Right.
architecture. So like, how did you want it to be built, and who were you thinking about when you were building it?
Okay, so when we built it, the programs in my world, honestly, I was doing all administrative, clerical, and IT staffing. So that's the piece I knew, right? I knew kind of the professional side of staffing. So we started out with a very rudimentary system that had the ability to do job postings in like a simple web time element, right? Um, we started doing our cold call guerrilla marketing. It was me and Rob Geist, who is my director of sales. He's hired number one. He's with me today.
Awesome.
And we guerrilla marketed everybody. And when we first got going, we landed an IT company, and it worked out great. We had the basic jobs, the flow was smooth, the time system was kind of rough because it was just web time. The next client we picked up was a manufacturing client. They had warehouse. They had to have clocks on the wall. And at that point, I was like, if we don't do this, we can't service this business. And we had other interest in that area. So fortunately for us, my partner, Scott Frost, is very good technology, and he helped us build that hardware time and attendance component. And I think that's what's really allowed us to kind of just get heavily involved in that LI space, right? We set up and figured out that if we can make a turnkey solution for an employer where they don't have to go out and pick up a time system, they don't have to worry about integrations, and all the business intelligence is there, that we could just rapidly onboard customers, right? It cuts the time down from months and months and months to we can go live in 3-4 weeks with a client.
That's impressive. So being a sales guy, I just want to ask this tangential question. Just in summary, what was your sales pitch when you were selling SimpleVMS to a large manufacturer? Like, what was your sales pitch to them to get them to subscribe to your software, to use it?
The easiest sales pitch that I found is just to ask them what they know about their current program, right? Guys, how are you tracking who's in your building? How many vendors do you have? What are you spending right now on staffing? Are these guys compliant with their billing rates and their markups? Are they compliant with your onboarding process? And the answer almost every single time is I don't know, right?
Yeah.
Or they have a whiteboard like you have behind you with all their vendors listed, and they're tracking it out on the whiteboard, and it's this horrible manual process. And then once you get that interest sparked, it's a matter of, okay, now we get into the finance side. How are you guys handling invoicing, right? Oh, you've got 12 invoices, right? And then you're reconciling those every week. So it's all just discovery questions about process on the front end, and it opens up so many conversations. And it's also why I think we're being able to help the vendors as well, because if I can solve all those reporting questions and things for the end customer, it takes that burden off of our staffing partners, right? That are out there doing that work.
Well, I'm glad you went in that direction, because that was my next question. I know I've been in this industry a long time, and when we're out prospecting clients and they say, "Oh, we have an MSP or we utilize this particular VMS," it's like, oh, gosh, because
Right.
it's because what we think about is it's a barrier between us and the client, and it is so hard. Like, if you really want to get a good fit, because we're talking about human beings, not widgets, right? And we're talking
Right.
about a specific role, a specific company culture. Like, so the best way to really get a good fit is to have as much inclusion or access or immersion into that environment to really understand it, so we can apply our recruiting expertise to find the right person. And every time you put a layer, like an organizational layer, like an MSP, or a software layer that creates, I guess it's divisive, it divides that, it gets harder. So we always were a little bit reluctant. So my question there is, once you started engaging with staffing companies, how was it received? Like, were they like, oh, it's just another VMS? Like, what were those conversations like?
I think, Dan, we had a lot of it's just another VMS, right? To start, right? And you have to kind of change the mindset on that. And we're still trying to do that today. But the design principle behind Simple VMS was transparency and enabling communication between a client and their vendors, right? And I knew that because as a staffing person, I came from that industry. If I couldn't have a relationship with that hiring manager or that director, whoever that is, we weren't going to be successful in filling their roles,
That's right.
right? And so we built the tools so that we tried to take the least amount of steps possible for a staffing agency to load somebody in the system and get them on assignment, right? That's also why the time's key, because it automatically feeds. So when you're an agency and you want to put Bob on an assignment, as soon as you send Bob over and he's hired, he becomes part of our time system. All that flows automatically back and forth. And the whole time we've been doing this, we've been trying to optimize to take as many steps as we can out of all hands, right? The agency and the client. and just facilitate that communication. Prior to this call, I was with a client and we're talking about their ramp up plan for Q4, right? They're going to hire 4,000 people across 12 facilities. And I'm like, guys, you need to be able to get this in the hands of the agencies in time. We can preload it in the system so they know what their recruiting targets are so that you can be successful and they're not floundering and giving you lesser talent. If they don't have the time to really dig in and recruit properly, they're not going to be able to fill those jobs. And if you ask them to do it last minute, they're going to fail. So we do more than just provide the VMS. We consult with these clients to try to make their staffing programs more effective.
I love that, but yet you're not an MSP.
I don't want to be an MSP. I've never been an MSP. But what you do realize is if you give somebody software and they don't know how to use it and they don't have the firepower on their team to actually manage it, it fails, right? So we have an account management team that helps manage all of that for our clients. And what I mean by manage is they do simple stuff. They have a dashboard that tracks, hey, you've got 180 timesheets and you've got 300 active workers. There's 120 delta here on people that probably shouldn't be active in the system anymore. Or you have a list of job postings that starts in July of 23. Well, right now we're in August, so those are not valid anymore, right? These need to be updated. Or there might be timesheets that are out there that were never approved for whatever reason. If we help them keep their data clean, it allows the vendors to know what they should spend their time on, and it takes a lot of questions out of the program. And then the reports are easy. Then we know what happened for turnover, what time to fill really is, right? What their fill rates are. And it allows people to know where they stand in the program so they can decide, hey guys, we have a 8-day time to fill. Why is this, right? If you're a staffing manager.
You know, Jason, three things in there that I absolutely love about your approach. You didn't sit there and tell me that you teach them how to use your software better. That never came out of your mouth. You didn't say, hey, we've got a customer success team that will teach you how to best use our software, how to best log in or troubleshoot. None of that. You actually said, we're going to teach you how to do the thing that's most important to your business to succeed, and just showing them how to do it through the use of SimpleVMS. So that shows that you are a client first caring organization, which I love that. And then obviously talking about, the data going in, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. And if they're sitting on bad data, then the reports don't matter. So the fact that you told me that you started out with the simple focus and then it aligned with your sales presentation and say, hey, what do you know what's going on with your organization? To now you're saying, hey, we're going to help you clean this up, tells me that's a core value. I didn't know this about SimpleVMS, but I can tell right now that's a core value, data accuracy and importance, so they can make the key business decisions, right?
Well, it is a little selfish too, because the stronger relationship we have with these clients, the more they rely on us. And it's really how we've grown our business is just through referrals across the board, right? And like you said when we started this, you didn't know about us. We didn't attend all the events. We weren't in all the press releases, right? We're just starting to do this campaign now. And with Aviante, it's expanding rapidly. But we grew fast because of our relationship and because of that network. And it's really just as simple as if you do the right thing, right? People recognize, and then you're known for that, right? And you're a trusted quantity. It shows in our NPS scores, right? We're at a plus 45 and a plus 50. Competition sits at a negative 28. Our NPS score is higher with staffing vendors. And to be fair, I wasn't looking at this at all prior to Aviante. And I probably should have been, right? I was just drowning on, hey, we've got all these new customers. We built a whole new platform, which I can talk to you about later on today in the interview. But I was focused on that side of the business, and the marketing engine wasn't our thing. But that was really surprising. But it makes sense because we do all the lifting, right? We implement all of it ourselves, right? We're not asking our customers to do any of that work. And then we train everyone. That burden is on us, and we want it to be on us because we've done so many of them. We know what it takes to make it successful. And if we can just guide people through to, hey, your business needs these 4 functions and just drill in on that for them, then they're happier, right? Versus us telling them, hey, you train your vendors, you put your data together, you build your integration. It doesn't work, I don't think.
So I love that, and I think that you're right. I know that I was going to go to the NPS score next because there was massive disparity when I saw this. And for those that are watching this that aren't quite familiar with what NPS is yet, it's basically how likely are you to refer me or recommend our company to somebody else. and to get in that 80% range, I think that's what the statistic I saw,
Yeah.
that's considered world class. There's only a handful of companies in any industry, if that actually achieve that level of customer satisfaction. So I was gonna go there because you made the comment that you're still working on it today to
Yeah.
get your customers to understand how they're doing, use the software to best meet their needs. And the fact that you weren't focusing on the NPS score, again, goes back to the core about why it works so well, because you were just focusing on helping your customers be successful. The NPS score is just a result of that. People that overemphasize and they say, how do I get my NPS score up? And they run marketing campaigns and do all that stuff. They lose sight of actually the thing that matters the most, which is making their customers successful. So one last thing I want to share, and I do want to get to that new platform because I think that casts the vision. So you grew really, really fast, and your main channel was referrals, and it was referrals from staffing companies. Am I right? Like
Right.
that's what was
Yeah.
happening. So
Yeah.
actual staffing companies were literally taking you to their clients and saying, hey, why don't I make your life easier? Let's actually use SimpleVMS.
Right.
So you were an outlier, because I don't know any other staffing agency that actually recommends a VMS like that. So how did they do that? Like, how did you actually partner with a staffing agency to get them to really sing your praises and walk you into their clients? Because that's fascinating to me.
So I think that goes back to the whole concept of when I sold staffing, it was very hard for me to differentiate myself amongst the other staffing companies, right?
Yeah.
Everybody says, look, we care, we interview, we're different, we specialize in one thing. Okay. That's how I felt, right? And when I built this software platform, it was like I can tangibly show you what we're doing, what we're different on. And in staffing, there are a lot of processes that are just not revenue generating in any way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All in staffing, the only way you make money is if you place a person on assignment or you get a permanent placement. Those are the only two
That's
ways
it.
that you generate money. There's
That's it.
nothing else you can do, right? So all of those steps in the middle are very costly and very inefficient. And also, a lot of staffing companies do not have a technical team to be able to optimize,
That's
right?
true.
They're focused on sales, they're focused on marketing, and then delivery, right? I need to get people, on assignment. So what we did is we went out to the people that were in our staffing programs, right? And we said, guys, look, if we can help you be more efficient, right? If we can provide you these reports, if you don't have to spend money on timekeeping, and then if we can help you become a preferred vendor at your client, you're going to gain this much market share. And if you just pick up a tiny bit of market share, you're going to grow your profit overall. So yeah, you are paying us a tiny fee, right? But you are now building a relationship as a true partner with your client. You're solving massive problems for them, right? I mean, we have systems in place where we can actually tie our time system to the security system at the client. So if you're a light industrial client and you've got a gate and you've got 400 people coming in, your security guy knows these guys are valid, their badges work, it sides both ways. If you're doing this without us, you got to tie multiple. It's not possible, right? I mean, it's expensive, it's costly, and these staffing companies don't have a way to do it. So I just looked at it from a consultative approach. How do we make the staffing companies more efficient? How do we save them money? And then we gave them a rebate. We said, look, if you help us get into a client, we're going to give you a little money for helping us do that. And it offsets some of your fee and it allows you to grow the business. And once we had a couple people that did that, it grew pretty quick, right? Because people go, wait, I don't have to spend the money and time on this. And then the integration with Aviante that we're building completely changes that game. This is like simple VMS on steroids.
That's definitely, the key thing that I want to go to there. And you made that point about the VMS sitting outside and the staffing agency not having all of these tools, and the fact that you're partnering with it, I think, is absolutely huge with this. Now, one thing I want to share before we transition over into the new platform and the integration with Aviante is that I've seen this for years now. The whole industry trickles down. Enterprise clients, 80% of enterprise employers, they use some type of VMS, right? In the
Right.
middle market, that number is significantly less, but it's increasing year over year. Then
Yep.
eventually your small businesses maybe never get there, because sometimes they never rise, but eventually a small business that gets into the middle market will do so by doing what the middle market does. And the middle market aspires to be the enterprise. So they typically follow suit. So I've looked at this over the last couple of years now that any staffing agency that's trying to aspire to go into that from that small to middle market range, they need to be looking at ways to bring more sophisticated solutions to their clients, like a VMS. And they need to be able to do that. And I feel like the middle market is really still a bit of a blue ocean when it comes to bringing a VMS to your clients, right? So, like, I've been talking about that strategy to agencies when I coach them. I'm like, hey, if you do this and you have a VMS that you can essentially white label and then connect it to your software, right? Like, you can provide a better solution. And the big piece I hear back is, well, the fees. I don't want to pay extra fees. It's margin compression. We're a low margin industry as it is already. And to your point, you're like, hey, it's a little bit of a fee, but you're going to get access to more revenue. And you've got some strategies for that. And I always go back with this saying right here, 80% of a watermelon is better than 100% of a grape, right?
Right.
So even if you got to
Right.
pay a little bit off the top, a little bit out of something big is worth it. So I liked your approach there. And I think that, kind of the concept that I've been sharing to help middle market entrench themselves and middle market employers, I think is key. But you're a step ahead of me, maybe 2 or 5. So tell me about tell me about the new platform you're building and why you felt it was the perfect integration to leverage this end-to-end frictionless staffing vision that Rishab and the leadership team at Aviante has now. Why is now the right time?
Well, so the new platform was actually something we started building in 2020. We launched the product, the original product, in 2011. It took us 2 years, Scott and I, by ourselves, kind of in my basement and wherever, in 2009, started building SimpleVMS, right? 2011, we launched the platform. By the time 2020 came, we had been putting band-aids on bullet holes, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you've got architecture that's a decade old, right? Software changes at light speed.
Yeah.
And we had a very solid, fantastic product. But one of the things that we did along the way is we never charged customers for any features, right? Any upgrades, anything that they needed. We just listened. And we did that same thing with vendors. So we bolted on a full HRIS suite of functionality to Simple VMS, but it was just that. It was bolted on. So in 2020, when there was a lot of available developers, right? Everybody laid everybody off, the world was ending. We weren't, right? We had a down spike and then we ended the year up very high, right? We had a ton of growth in
Same.
2020. And so we hired developers and we took the last 3 years to build a completely new platform that gave us the framework to really expand. And then all the things I hated about the old system, we got rid of and we made it more streamlined. We've got better reporting. We've got single sign-on. It all runs on the new Blazor platform. And what that enables us to do is deploy faster. So we can deploy faster for the middle market, the small market even. We have clients that have 30 temps. We can turn those guys in a couple of weeks. It's really very simple, right? And with the timekeeping system, we ship a clock out. You plug it in, it's on the wall, and you're done. The rest of it, our support and implementation team does for you, which allows us to go faster. And it allows those small to mid-sized vendors that want to be a vendor on premise, right?
Yeah.
But the client says, okay, you can be a vendor on premise, but what if you don't get them filled? Like, okay, be the vendor on premise, have a backup vendor or two in Simple VMS. You don't get it filled in a day or two, it flows over to those guys. The client still gets what they want. You get to control the narrative. So everything that we've done is to been focused on make it easier to deploy and go faster. In tandem with that, I had some conversation. I mean, people have been coming at me for years. Hey, we want to be part of this. How do we do this? And nobody had a path forward to how do we really grow rapidly, right? I was already growing rapidly. And when I met Rishabh, his vision was the same as mine. It's like, what is the best solution for our customer? Not how do we make money? How do we focus on those things happen if you just do the right thing.
That's right.
Focus on the customer, focus on the vendor. And now the customer is both sides. So my whole philosophy of treat the vendor nice just goes to the next level now because I have full capability to build an integration that will be completely seamless for the staffing agency. And that will transform the market, right? When you can take all those steps in the middle out, a job order hits Simple VMS, flows over to Bold, and then that goes to 24/7. All the recruiter has to do is curate talent. You recruit, curate, make sure the talent is happy. They can self-select and put themselves on assignment.
So
it'll change the game. That part of the job when I ran my staffing company was the largest part, right? You knew that Dan was a great guy, right? And you wanted to put Dan on assignment. You had to call Dan. You had to make sure Dan was going to show up. You had to tell him where he was going to go. Then you had to make sure he did get there, right, on the next day, right? And then the subsequent days. I can automate all of that in this process, and that's what we're building right now.
I I think that's incredible, and I can't argue with you about how great of a guy Dan is. I mean, I've heard amazing things. So,
I'm not this Dan. I mean, there could be other Dans too.
oh, you're killing me. You're killing
No,
me.
but
But
I mean, yeah.
so, and I love it, and that kind of gets to the point where I was blown away by the vision last year that Rishabh shared at Connect, kind of talking about the future. And it was like, okay, I sort of get it. I see where you're going, but this year seeing all the dots, like I feel like that end-to-end frictionless thing is really starting to take shape. And I feel like it's going to be what this industry needs, knowing what I know about the staffing industry. So when he mentioned that he was adding the VMS piece, I'm like, well, that's interesting because the staffing industry has always looked at end to end is on the constraints of the ATS. Like they just felt like the front end was the beginning of the ATS or maybe a website at most, and the back end was like however you do payroll. So now that they're actually taking the end into the customer organization and better connecting the customer to the agency, it's brilliant, right? So I want to ask a very specific case study question, if I can, is give me a scenario where you sold to a vendor or a customer, not a vendor. If you sold to an employer that was not using any type of a VMS, but they were using one or multiple agencies, talk to me about how they were getting the job to the agency and how the agency was getting the candidate to the employer, to the client. And then tell me what it looked like after the integration with SimpleVMS to whatever they were using for an ATS.
So most customers today are doing all this via email, right? They have 5 agencies they want to work with. They're trying to hire 50 people. So they have somebody that is sending out emails to those 5 agencies, give me 10 each. Is just the simplest math on that. The agencies are constantly sending back emails. I have 2 today, I have 3 tomorrow. It's just this never-ending stream of spam in your inbox. And then when they show up, if they have clocks, they might have 5 different clocks on the wall, right? And they're all labeled agency 1, agency 2, agency 3. So they have 5 different ways they're clocking in, whatever that is, right? Some might be biometric, some might be a card, some's a number, right?
Yeah.
Then they work, right? The managers have to log in, if they log in at all, to 5 different web things to approve time, right? Send that back over to the agency. The agency then compiles an invoice and sends 5 invoices over to the vendor, right? Or to the client. Everything is just a ton of emails back and forth. That's the most common case. There are a few customers that I've seen that have some basic spreadsheets or they do a Google Sheets thing
Right.
to manage it, but it's just a very, very disjointed process. When Simple VMS comes in, you have one portal. We load all of your job titles. We match all of the markup rate cards for all the vendors. So when you have a picker packer first shift and it's a $20 pay rate and a 50% markup, we have all that locked into the system, right? So the customer can say, I need 50 people. They can pick, I want all 5 vendors, and they send that out. At that point, the agencies can send candidates through. And then for direct send capability, where you've got the agency identifying the talent and credentialing them on the front end, you can just send those people through. They're automatically hired and they're automatically sent to the time clock. The hiring manager gets an email. Here are the 12 people starting today. They already know the number they type in or the badge for their thing, and they scan. As they scan, the manager sees real time. Here's who's working in all my different areas of my business. But more importantly, the staff and agency sees that same information in real time. So they can then be proactive instead of reactive about who showed up today, what's attendance look like, instead of the manager calling them and saying, these 5 people didn't make it, right? At the end of the week, all the time gets approved. That can be done either way, right? You can have a vendor on premise, you can have the managers do it. Time becomes one invoice that then goes over to the customer with their codes on it, right? All their GL codes are lined out, right? Exactly where people worked, what they worked on is all lined out on that invoice. Each agency gets their piece of that invoice. It's all automated. So instead of 5 invoices to 5 different people and 5 different time systems, it's all one time system that the end customer approves, and they get one invoice based on that time. The consolidation of efforts is insane. I've got case studies on hundreds of thousands of dollars saved just in time on small programs because of all the different touch points that we're cutting out.
I would love it if you have some of the case studies like that are like print and shareable. I would love to be able just to put a button on page here where people can go take a look at that and see how it works. And Jason, I can tell you've been in the industry because you described that situation so well of temporaries walking in to an assignment and there's 5 different time clocks and they're labeled. However, I got to share that you overlooked one thing that happens that sometimes they're not labeled and then they clock in on the wrong clock and they're like, I don't understand why it's not working. And then the temporary is like wasting time there, or God forbid they actually are in the software of the other agency that owns that clock. So they're actually able to clock in and then they end up working a day. And it's just like, it's kind of a mess. So you're telling me with SimpleVMS, there's just one clock and every agency's people will just go in and clock on one clock and it's all just automated, sorted out the right way and put back
fully automated. Yep, it's all set up. So basically there's one clock on the wall. Everybody's automatically loaded into that clock and they have their code. So when they punch in, it'll show up on the employer screen, right? But it shows up, I'm agency 1 temp. It shows up on their SimpleVMS dashboard. And they have what we call an in-out dashboard that's broken by clients. So each staffing agency can see every one of their clients in our portal, and they actually have a real-time tracker on who's working, right? What they've worked on. It gives them that visibility so they can actually help manage the employee base from remote. Whereas before, all these other time systems they're not the same level of functionality here. One more thing about the time system, we do real-time job costing while we're in there. So people can actually punch into different things throughout the day. So you could punch into line 1 packaging and then line 2 picking and line 3 forklift or whatever the cost codes are for the client. So the client can actually map out their billing and get down to cost per unit data using our tool. Right. And we feed that over. So we feed that over to Manhattan, a bunch of LMS systems, all kinds of finance tools. It all feeds real time. So we have APIs for that. We have tons of clients that are mapping to that. And for those small and mid-sized customers, just to go buy a Chronos system to do that is insane. And the integration and the setup is hundreds of thousands of dollars. We deploy all that as part of our system. And a lot of our customers are now using our time system to track their full-time employees right on their payroll. And then we feed that to their payroll side.
Well, that's, and kind of as we're looking to land this plane here, because I want to be respectful of your time, that's where I see this industry going, is you actually see, especially in the middle market, which comprises the most accessible clients. The middle market is like the most tangible. It's like the largest piece, obviously, that people are pursuing. Different vendors are going, or different agencies are going after different clients, and those vendors are looking for more sophisticated ways to basically down cost their operation and become more efficient. Right. And a lot of times, without visibility, they just default to just kind of pushing the rate of the agency down. So I actually see this tool being able to give the employer enough data to almost justify why the agency should get paid a reasonable rate and not just be subject to down costing. So I think it's valuable there. The other piece that I see growing at the same time as I see more middle market employers adopting VMS technology is I see employer of record services actually growing. And I think there's a shift, especially in the middle market, that is basically saying, hey, we're really good at making this widget or really good at doing this service, right? So, and they just want to almost outsource the supply chain of labor or outsource HR. And if you are an agency that can bring that in and bring these tools in, I think you actually have the ability to actually say, hey, we're going to be EOR for all of your permanent headcount, that would normally be there. So the rate card is going to be less. So you're not going to have to pay full markup. But then on all the talent that we're bringing in, the supply chain of labor, we're going to have a different rate card because we have to make money to be able to do all the recruiting stuff. And that's money that the organization would have been paying anyway. They're just, putting it over to the agency. So I really like that concept. And I think that would be a good approach for any agency. So,
Well, one thing you hit on that's really important is when you're leading with this technology, you're providing actual solutions to the end customer besides just I'm giving you people to do the work, right? You're giving them business intelligence, you're giving them smoother operations, and it allows them to really pick up that they're going to be driving how the supply chain of labor functions for that employer, right? They can come in and they can be the principal point on that and then have that failover so they can actually increase their price a lot of times. They come in and they're consultative on the front end, and then they bill that out for the customer, and the customer, that makes sense. I'll pay more. And then when you're going through our channel partnership, we're actually giving the staffing agencies a reduced rate on the VMS, right? So they get a reduced rate. We're giving them a rebate on their spend with Aviante and helping them to grow the program and helping them along the way. So we want to make it easy for them. It allows them to drive price in a lot of scenarios and grab more land share at that client.
I love it. I love it. Last question I have for you today, Jason, is I don't get the impression that SimpleVMS was out looking to be acquired, right? I'm willing to, I feel like maybe you were, and it wasn't public knowledge, but I feel like maybe someone came to you, and then once that happens, you maybe start looking. But why did you're a successful company, you're growing, your customers love you, you're scaling, you're doing it all without major marketing or sales budgets. Like you're super successful. Like why choose Aviante? Like why partner into an ATS? What did you see? And I hate labeling them just ATS now with what they're building.
Yeah.
But why did you do that? Like why make that decision to join this group? Like what are you seeing out there that made this a smart decision for you in SimpleVMS?
I believe that this acquisition will change the entire landscape of the staffing market. I think that the major issue we had in VMS, once you get beyond our fee, right, we have to generate a fee somewhere, right? The hardest part is that double entry work for all the agencies, right? And the inconsistency in the data. By doing this, we can eliminate that completely, right? The data flows between systems. It allows us to scale this business at a level that I couldn't have done by myself, right? This company will be 5 times larger than it is today in the coming years. And it's going to continue to grow because now we can truly cut out all of the busy work for the staffing agency. We can make sure all their rates are matching, the invoices are clean, the credentialing flows back and forth, right? Pop-up alerts so they can be more effective to manage. It provides a better quality of service to our end customers. It provides a better quality of service to our staffing customers, right? And it goes along the same philosophy that I've always had. Let's just always do the right thing for our customers, and we'll grow naturally as part of that. And then Rishabh and his team were instrumental in that decision. Rishabh follows that same mindset, right?
Yeah.
Whatever we're doing today is great, but if it's not right, we're going to break it and we're going to build the right process so that we can deliver the best option for all of our customers. And when I fully was convinced that was the vision, that's when I was like, okay, fine, we'll do this. But no, I wasn't looking. I told them no a dozen times on the front end, right? I said, I want to do an integration. I want to be a partner. I don't want to do this. But then once I truly saw what we could build together, and I realized that it was truly go forward and build the right thing for our customers, I was all in, right? And you were at Connect and you saw how many people were interested in this and how this can
Yeah.
change their lives, right? When you could take that work out of the recruiter's hands and allow them to just be excellent recruiters, it's going to change how the vendors work.
I agree, and I see it the same exact way. And I got to admit now I lied. You just said something that made me want to ask a very specific question. So this is a real life scenario, and this is I've heard this from multiple companies. So a lot of times MSPs, that utilize a VMS, there's a master service agreement that will have language in there like invoices have to be submitted within a number of period of time, and if they're not, then you can't get paid on them. And
Yeah.
there's been a number of agencies out there that have been hit by this. For some reason, something doesn't get submitted right way. Someone in AR, AP doesn't, they miss something, whatever it might be, somewhere along the line, something doesn't get submitted the right way. And then by the time they catch it, it's outside of that window and they're out of luck. And typically
Right.
these are sizable losses that they're having to write off or take your client to collections, which is always ugly. So I've seen this multiple times, and it's a shame. would this type of an integration almost solve that problem because Aviante is truly end to end and now Simple VMS, like it's just going to all flow through. So there's
It'll take
really
it to another level, but we were already solving that problem at Simple VMS before this even happened. We do not have those issues in Simple VMS. So what we do is our system actually will send out alerts on time to make sure time's approved. And when those get ignored, our support team that's completely hands-on, that's helping to manage this process, will reach out to those managers and validate, is Dan's time correct? Is Jason's time correct? Let's get this timesheet from 3 weeks ago squared away, and then get those things approved and pushed through. We've never had a scenario where we had a vendor write off billing because it wasn't entered in our system, right?
wow.
And I think it goes on to the fact that we have that support team that actually cares, that's actively trying to manage the relationship with the vendor and help them be able to be successful with their clients, that those types of things don't happen, right? When you throw data into a black box and you're not allowed to communicate, how are you going to get that right in the first place? If you can't call a hiring manager and validate something happened, how is that going to get that time pushed through? So I think it's just our entire approach is different. But when you talk about the integration, it takes it to the next level, because now a person flows from Aviante Bold right into Simple VMS. We know their rates match because we've got those matching tables. The thing is talking on both sides, right? When an invoice happens, it's going to feed directly over in. So back office, they're paid correctly. And then ultimately we can get the employee paid on their change card, right? So we now have the change card where employees can set up bank accounts that their payroll flows right onto. And we even have the capability to do daily pay. So I think it makes it even more accessible for people and takes the even less risk out of the equation. But we've not had that issue at Simple VMS.
I love it. I love that you're solving that problem because when it doesn't happen incredibly often, but when it does, it stinks, you know, and that's
Oh, it's
big time.
horrible. Yeah. Yeah.
So Jason, I appreciate you being here. And for those of you listening, I mean, I will tell you right now, if you're a small to mid-market agency and you're trying to grow and scale and take advantage of the mid-market employers out there and really, you know, bring something innovative, bring something that not only is going to be valuable to your client, that's a larger client, but also create efficiencies and cost savings for your organization, this is the play. You know, like bring them a VMS tool that can seamlessly and without friction integrate into your tech stack. And for Aviante customers, like you have a head start on this one now, and you're going to have, you know, more support and to being able to bring this true comprehensive solution to the marketplace. I think it's amazing. So Jason, if anyone wants to follow up with you and learn more about Simple VMS or how all this works, what's the best way to get in touch with you or someone from your team?
Yeah, so I would reach out to us. You can get on our website and ask for more information. And then I don't know if I want to bomb Rob right now, but Rob Geist is our director of sales. You can reach out to him, and then Dan can attach some links, I assume, to some emails through this.
You got it.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'll get them all on page. Jason, thank you so much for being here. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And then congratulations on the acquisition. That's big time.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate you taking the time for this.